a packed venue and also a topic that's on many people's, I think probably brought people here this morning. I've done lots of research on this and I've come to very simplistic conclusions around the matter. The topic this morning is about HR versus, I think Dermot really set it up and trying to get us into a space. I was going to bring with some boxing gloves just in case and make sure that some people are fully prepared for it. But when we think of this topic, we must state in context because we've tried different things. And when I think of it, I was busy preparing this presentation at home naturally with my kids and with my wife, and I was trying to look for some sort of stimulus and try and tell me what this topic's really about. And as it dawned, my daughter's 4, very intelligent 4, my son's 7. And they were at each other's throats the whole morning. And my wife then started getting a little bit anxious about the situation. And I thought, you know, the relationship between HR and operations is kind of similar in many respects. If you would, you know, before you get married, you propose. And so picture this, you come to the company and you have this big vision of what you're going to do in operations or in HR. And you have all this plans of excitement. And naturally, when you plan a wedding, women plan the wedding. And we get to a space where we speak about what does it actually entail, because it's really two people getting together in a relationship. But in an organization, the two most important components, I feel, is the people that make the money, the people that get the money, and the people that ultimately keep you happy. And that's a combination of what it is. It's operations and HR together. But what does operations really need from HR? Because this is a question that can have various answers. But really what we need, I'm an operations individual, so excuse me. What we really need is a partner that's with us all the way. You know, someone that's you know, after marriage, you're doing the accounts together. You know what I'm talking about? You have kids together, God's sake. I mean, you bring an employee into the interview room and you interview them, and together you decide that this is the best fit. Am I right? And that's what we need in operations, is a strategic partner. The other thing, when you're in a relationship, you've got to actually really champion your partner. Am I right? I mean, you've got to, I mean, if you're in a marriage, you're in it for the long haul. I mean, that's what the relationship is about. So you really got to make sure that you are the biggest ambassador for your partner. And we want, as operations, I'm sure, many of my operations colleagues would agree, that we want someone to champion our causes, to make sure that we're at the forefront of the relationship. The same is the fact that we are in a current situation where change constantly is coming into our space. We're constantly looking at restructures, we're constantly looking at retrenchments, or we're constantly looking at mergers. And really what we need from HR is to be there for us, not with a Section 189 letter, as quite often experienced, or, you know, there's lots of legal ramifications, I'm sure, in that space, but we really need them to be there in the emotional side, because it's an emotional drive in the business that we go through. And I'm sure there are other people with different views. If I can just go around the room, what do you guys want from me? Because this is a time for you to really say to them out in a public forum, this is what we want from you. I see some laughter or some giggles. Is there anybody brave enough to put up their hand and say, this is what I want from HR? Okay, I figured as much. Okay, this is a complete, just because it's being taped doesn't mean that we'll send it back to your companies and so forth. I spoke to some of my colleagues in HR. I did some research on the net. And there's tons of things that comes through, tons. There's tons of it. But really what they really want is clear communication. Because in operations, we decide to change things quite frequently. Am I right? I see some notes there. The other thing is that we decide that we now need 50 employees by Monday. Does it make sense? Even though we knew about this a couple of months ago, but I'm not saying anything. The other thing is that you just go to HR when you need them. That's not what they need from you. You've got to engage them. I mean, they're your partner, so if you want a relationship, you've got to be there constantly. You've got to be there proactively. You've got to make sure that you communicate clearly. Because often we say things and we mean something else. No, I actually meant in October, not in the last quarter of the financial year, the calendar year. So there's a situation that unravels sometimes. Now, I want you to look at this next slide, and I've put out their ops and I've put out their HR, but I also want you to just tell me what you see. How many do you see? Okay, let's ask HR if they really saw 3. If they saw 4. Okay, ops, what did you see? 8. It's typical. It's typical. They come to you with this budget, and they want that amount of employees, and they want you to be an employee of choice as well at the same time. Perceptions can lead to misunderstandings and conflict all the time. Is that an agreement? We need to make sure that we correct those perceptions. We have those engagements with people. What happens when we have the situation? Because the organization is the ultimate customer here. We find ourselves operating in silos. We start becoming managers of activities and people and not leading them as we should be doing in this age. It further proliferates perceptions, and success is not attained as an organization. It's attained in you are the HR department of choice, or the operations department won that award, but there's no collective. Because when you walk up there and you get the best call center award as an example, I don't see any HR guys going up with you. And they were the ones staffing you in the first place, The other customer here is your internal customer. Yes, operations, you also have a customer. And what happens in this situation is that they're the recipients of this information. So they get vague and undefined goals coming from you, saying that we need a service level of 80%, or actually what it means that you've got to be there until 7 o'clock, but you're only paying them until 5 o'clock. And we start becoming one-dimensional to them, because we don't look at them as an individual, as a holistic individual. And it leads to low or moderate morale, sometimes absenteeism, but definitely it increases attrition. And particularly in this region, we have a very big problem with attrition, if you would agree with me. What does the customer get at the end of the day? Because we don't relate to that, because we think about our job and we think about our function, but we all are employed here. Whether it's a non-profit organization or whether it's a profitable organization, the customer, there's someone at the end of it, and they get this disjointed function. So what do we do is the question. And that's the question that I was posing myself when I went through this research. Operations and HRM, or HR or human capital, we have to define the opportunity that exists between both of us. Because when we look at the opportunities created in operations and the motivation that surely comes from any HR space, there's a joint capability, and that leads to a one understanding. And for me, all my research says that we have to have a recognized partnership. We have to speak as one voice. It's like two parents, when your kid wants something, and I'll make the example again. He wants a bike, but he wants it next week, and it's not possible. So he goes to his mother, and she takes the credit card and she puts it out. Same way we deal with in the business today. We have to know what our training budgets are and what they are for collectively, and not saying that we have these courses available, but you're not going on it. Has to be mutual support for one another. Has to be regular engagement. I've never really, this is one of the first forums where I've seen HR people and operations people sit together, you know, and listen to each other. And you've got to show interest in the area. I mean, in operations, we are in the call center industry in the Western Cape. We're at the forefront of business outsourcing. We are at the forefront of it. We've got so many call centers in the Western Cape. There's different demands around the situation. We've got an immense growth in our space, but we don't know much about what's happening in the HR space because, quite frankly, I think sometimes HR gets left behind and gets called on when they're needed, and that's not how it should be. We should recognize that there's a joint functional importance in both areas. You know, and I know, that in any organization, there are 3 dynamics that makes it work. It's the people. Without them, you can't operate the technology. And to make sure that everyone's aligning to a successful intervention, you have to have process. But without ethos, joint ethos, without an atmosphere that says that we are one, you have a disjointed approach. So when you go back to the workplace, don't speak bad about HR. And when you're sitting in the HR meeting, don't speak bad about the ops guys. All right? There has to be a relationship there. And there has to be an atmosphere that says that we are one.